So, welcome, Matthias.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. We got a hot mic. Amazing. Thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. It's an incredible panel we just had before us. More people working on ZK, so it's always great to see. For those of you that do not know me, I am Matías Bronner. I am a son of Argentinos. I grew up in the United States, and it is a passion of mine to work in cutting-edge technology. And it's amazing for me that working in tech in Silicon Valley has brought me back to Buenos Aires. This is my third or fourth time down here in about a year and a half, and big in part thanks to Crecimiento for creating this movement that we can all be a part of. So, without further ado, I'll talk a bit about ZK Sync, the work we're doing in the region, but mostly it's a showcase of the projects, and then also looking at what's future, what's next for our vision of how we can all scale Ethereum together. So ZK Sync is built upon the concept that is called the ZK Credo. This is freedom enables progress, progress enables prosperity. This is the core tenet of everything that we do as an organization, the way that we approach how we build technology, and the core ethos that drives our partnerships and our ability to scale and build out technology that actually adds value to individuals. Our CEO, Alex, he was down here in Aleph in August, in Aleph Agosto, the inaugural one, and he was able to talk in front of tons of founders and really align that the builders here in Buenos Aires see the world in the same way that he does. He grew up in Soviet Russia at the time now is Ukraine. And he saw that the benefits of what giving people freedom can do for their personal lives, for their sovereignty, for their ability to build and create better technology. So what we're looking at going forward, so ZK Sync has had a pretty ambitious road to come to market. We were the first ZK EVM, so the ability to prove that you can actually use zero-knowledge cryptography at scale in a cost-effective way so that people can leverage Ethereum in a easier to access, lower cost, and kind of faster way to interact with blockchain. For those of us that have been in the space for a while, and even new entrants, you know that it's difficult to use Ethereum. It's super high barrier to entry. The UX is complicated. You need to download different wallets, write down seed phrases on a piece of paper. If you lose it, you lose all your money. These are all risks. These are all risks to adoption. So our big focus is how do we improve the user experience while also increasing the ability and throughput of the protocol. So simplifying the dev experience is a big part. You need people to build things so that people can use them. So that's step one. As you see, we're really focused on ensuring that we have state-of-the-art dev tooling, and that involves everything from EVM compatibility all the way down to the actual functions that devs need to build. Then enable Web 2-like user experience. What this means is it should just work like every other piece of technology that we use today. So currently you open an app, you don't worry about what cloud server it's running on. But today with Web3, you need to know what chain you're on, what network, make sure you have native assets, you have gas tokens, a lot of barriers to usability. Our big focus is on performance, so making sure that you could have Visa scale so that when we do get these mass market use cases, like some that we'll show later, you can ensure that the blockchain can keep up, but also reduce the cost massively. So we're shooting for sub 1/10 of 1 cent for any transaction, and again, there's a lot of ways to get around this. We'll show the use case of Buenos Aires where they're batching transactions to make it even more cost effective. And then increasing the UI, so making it extremely easy for anyone to download an app and automatically be inside of this ecosystem without having to go through the pain of setting up wallets, writing down seed phrases, et cetera, losing the ability for account recovery. And then the last kind of main focus for us is connecting public and private chains. So being able to take what is these public blockchains and then also private blockchains, for instance, that banks want. As Pala was just talking about, privacy is extremely important when you're looking at personal finances. So a bank would never, oh, looks like we've lost. We're back. There's no reason that anyone should know every single transaction I've ever done, right? Or if I am on a bank, there's no reason that everyone should be able to inspect the ledger and know how much money I have in my account. So for us to get into these mass market use cases, we need to ensure that we actually have privacy, security, but that it all interacts with Ethereum. There's been a lot of attempts by institutions to build institutional private blockchains, but if they're not interoperating with what is public and what is decentralized, they will not succeed. And the banks are learning that, and they are now moving in this direction. So what is ZK Sync Era? Era is the L2 that most people know of when they think of ZK Sync. But this really is the first elastic network. So we'll get into this a bit later, but the elastic network is the idea that anyone can now spin up their own private chain, public chain, have it all be interoperable and settle back to Ethereum. This is extremely important, and our main focus with Era is that this is the hub. This is the hub of governance, the hub of liquidity, and the ability to bridge and create infra that goes across all these chains. So we'll get into this a bit later, but there's a lot of different companies, both startups, but also all the way up to governments and institutions that are launching their own chains. We cannot get into a world where we have, once again, more fragmented liquidity and more fragmented usability. So some case studies. Who's using ZK Sync and why? This to me is extremely exciting. 1 year ago, none of these were on this slide. So a lot of this work has been done in large part by some of the team here in Buenos Aires and also globally to make sure that we are able to offer and provide folks a way to use Web3, a way to use this for their different use cases. So Deutsche Bank has gone through a pilot phase using their own ZK chain through a partner named Memento. Super interesting in the sense that they can now tokenize funds, distribute them to accredited investors, and do KYC AML using their own private chain that settles back to Ethereum. Tradable just launched a couple of months ago, and they have brought a ton of real-world assets on chain. We'll get into this in a moment, but this has now proved to be a big push for what ZK Sync is doing. Again, our focus is real-world shit, right? There's a lot of builders building casino. I care more about the computer. We understand that the casino funds the computer, if you know the metaphor from Chris Dixon, but I truly believe, that's why I'm here, is that there's the ability for blockchain to enable change, enable better use cases. But we do see a lot of just, let's make money, let's get a meme coin out, let's move quick. What we're doing with real-world assets, this is a massive boon for folks in Argentina that may have difficulty investing in stocks overseas. We can tokenize this, make it accessible, and make sure it's regulated. And then Fidelity and Signum, they've tokenized 50 million of Matter Labs' treasury. And then, they're exploring a lot of other ways to leverage blockchain, which we'll get into. And the city of Buenos Aires is the one I'm most, excited about. Obviously, it's a local use case, but it is the first government in the world to launch ZK-backed digital identity. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but it is an incredible use case that we're seeing a government understanding the need for blockchain, the need for zero knowledge, and also making sure that this is better for their citizens. It's secure, it's private sovereign. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment. So global expansion. ZK Sync has found that there is a lot of innovation, there's a lot of need for blockchain across the world, not just US and Europe, where a lot of attention might be for some projects. So we're really excited to now have Ripio on chain. They're going to be launching La Chain soon. And then Quark ID, which is the largest government use case. And so it's just another showcase that we're able to not just connect chains, we're able to connect regions across the world, and we're helping bring US partners of ours down to Latin America and vice versa. How do we elevate LATAM projects and scale them to the world? So some of the launches that we're excited about. Ripio, the oldest exchange in Latin America, many of you are very familiar. They have La Chain, which is a layer 2 that they purpose-built. After a lot of exploration, they have decided that they're going to migrate and launch La Chain ZK. The benefits of zero-knowledge tech, the speed, the scale, the high throughput, the low cost, is much better suited for the LATAM-focused use cases. La Chain is really about building out infrastructure for founders in Latin America to build local use cases that can provide solutions for needs here and then help expand them globally. And so we're really excited to be partnering with them. The testnet is in approach and the mainnet's coming later this year. So definitely keep an eye. We'll be doing a lot of activations here at Aleph, but also across Latin America with them as our core partner. And they're also following the model you've seen other exchanges do of having the exchange and then the L2, similar to Coinbase and Base. So we're really excited about the work that they're doing to help elevate founders in the region. And then now, as briefly mentioned, ZK Sync is the second largest RWA blockchain in the world, behind Ethereum. So almost number one. But it's really amazing to see that we're getting a lot of traction on these real world usages, right? Meme coins are great. They serve a point for culture. Not my favorite use case of blockchain, but it's an easy one. Real world assets to me are extremely understandable. You can take a stock that maybe is inaccessible, tokenize it, and invest from anywhere in the world. And so right now, ZK Sync Era is the number 2 in the world, and by a pretty substantial margin. So we're seeing a lot of emphasis. If you're building real world asset tech, we'd love to talk to you and see how we can help you get to a global scale. And then, the government of Buenos Aires deployed ZK-backed DID to 3.6 million citizens. This launched back in October. There was a soft stealth launch to make sure everything works. Again, governments do not move fast and break things. It's best to move slow and make sure things work. This has been in progress for over a year and a half, so it's really exciting to see this get to market. And we can see just like natural growth on its own, right? This is people going and logging into their government portal, accessing marriage licenses, birth certificates, and you can see, let's see if this works, there we go. This spike right here is when driver's license was released. So again, this is being done not necessarily through the power of marketing, but rather through the power of usage. People are going in, interacting, doing trámites, and now it's all in the background using blockchain. Most people aren't really aware that blockchain is even involved. It's not necessary for an average user to need to know that things are unchained. At the end of the day, it just needs to be better than what they had. And the benefit here is, why would a government use blockchain? There's a few. One is selective disclosure. So with zero knowledge cryptography, what zero knowledge means is that I can prove something is true without showing the information that is underlying. So today, if I go to a liquor store or bar, I show my ID, it shows them a lot of info they don't need. They just need to know, am I over 18 in Buenos Aires? In the US, over 21. It's a simple query, but instead they see my document number, my full name, my address, my birth date. That's not necessary. Now, maybe in a use case of going to the bar, it's not a big deal, but you can see how having your information publicly exposed is not something that we want in today's era. And so the city of Buenos Aires, spearheaded at the time by Diego Fernandez, understood that they needed zero-knowledge technology to be able to offer selective disclosure. I can prove I'm over 18 without showing you any info. You don't even need to see my birth date. You certainly don't need to know where I live. So this all came about by saying, how do we give people their ownership of their credentials? Every government has your data. They have your info, but they have it. They have it stored somewhere in a server or wherever, maybe some paper if it's old school. But there's no way for you to access it, own it, and use it in a sovereign way. What Cork ID does is it enables individuals to prove that they are themselves, receive their documents that the government already owns. This is all done through a public proof, so none of the actual data is being transferred anywhere. But then once you own your documents, you can be asked to verify these at any time. When you do a verification, it's peer-to-peer, so it's not going and doing a write on chain to show Matias went to the bar and proved he was of age, so I know he went there. No, in fact, what it's doing is I'm giving them access to check my verifiable credential, which is an indecipherable string. It is basically, no worries, I got it. And so what this does is now it says to someone, you can prove the information I'm telling you is real, but you don't need to know it. I own my own information, so the government doesn't have to oversee every action I'm doing. Now, this is a decentralized model. This is using zero knowledge. There's a lot of digital identities out there, but most of them have ownership and control from the government. This implementation by the city of Buenos Aires is the first to use zero knowledge tech to ensure that this is sovereign for individuals. We're now seeing Cork ID expand. It's moving across Argentina, going to Mexico, many other regions across Latam, and now starting to form a bridge into Europe, Asia, etc., to be able to offer an alternative technology for citizens to have their own ownership. So there's a really cool use case. It's non-financial. It's leveraging blockchain in the back end, but the people interacting with it don't need to know. Mi tío abuelo, Sami, I love him. He's in his 80s. He doesn't need to know anything about a seed phrase. But you know what? He accesses MIBA, and he does his trámites, and he doesn't have to leave his house. He doesn't have to wait in line. It's wonderful. There are also tons of potential GDP benefits from streamlining these types of systems. So there is a massive boon for the governments implementing it. But it's great to have a pioneering government like Cava to be able to implement this first case, and now we're able to show the results and bring this elsewhere. So huge use case. Lemon, everyone's favorite payments card, massively used across Buenos Aires, now expanding into Peru and many other countries. We've formed a pretty strong partnership with them on the ZK Sync Era network. We're really excited to help Lemon bring more and more features on chain, but at the end of the day, this is an amazing way for people to interact with crypto by taking pesos, converting them to stables, maybe get involved in some DeFi, get cash back in Bitcoin, and use a credit card on a daily. So when inflation is high, it's a massive, massive use case. Really exciting to see the amount of expansion that's happening in a way that makes it very easy for people to use crypto. The UX barrier is the highest barrier for people to entry. The benefits are needed. Latam understands, so it's great to have them on our side. Pinta token, maybe the oldest real-world asset or one of the first. It is a very clear example. You buy one pinta, and you can always redeem it for one beer, no matter what the price of a beer is. Again, here in Buenos Aires, there's been a lot of price changes, so if you had a nice paycheck and you wanted to load up on pintas for the future, you knew you had a party in a few months, you can do so. Now they migrated their chopera all the way to ZK Sync, so now it's a gasless experience. Before, they were doing some magic in the background, but they were sending ETH back and forth, so if you transferred a pinta to someone, they might not be able to use it, they have to load a wallet, more complicated. So super seamless experience now. You just go to the chopera, you buy, you can use Mercado Pago, you have your pintas in your wallet, you scan a QR and they give you a beer for whatever price you paid in the past. So a really great example. Also, there's Clave Wallet, which is a native ZK wallet. If you go in there, there's now a way to purchase pinta directly from inside the app as well. So just trying to make this as easy as possible for people to interact with the blockchain. And then Bombo, a very well-known music ticketing app here in Argentina. They have currently actually enabled 600,000 users to have wallets on chain. Now, users don't have to do anything. They don't have to manage any of their accounts. You just log in like you normally would. They're taking care of all the abstraction. And they've sold over 1.3 million NF tickets to date. All of those are soon to be minted on Era. A lot of really interesting benefits coming that will be able to be supported by Access, proving actions, proving that you're a super fan can give you a benefit to maybe one day meet your favorite artist. And also a lot of really interesting things coming down the roadmap for social payments, etc. And then Mountain, another Argentine-founded company. This is a USDM. It's a yield-bearing stable that gives users their returns. Currently, if you use a stable coin, it's worth 1 USD after a year. With what Mountain is doing, they're giving you about 5% return. So instead of someone like Circle that owns all the assets and they make return on your funds, the returns are being given to the individual. So it turns your payment into a savings, high-yield savings account. Super interesting use case, really great team. And again, all of these founders, all these projects we're just showing are all based out of LATAM and building really interesting use cases for better usability, for day-to-day consumer applications, financial sovereignty, digital identity. Really, really wide range of use cases, whereas if you look globally, sometimes you're seeing a very narrow focus of we want to create value and returns on funds. We've got a massive array of just a few projects that we've talked about here today. So what we just showcased is a lot of projects building on Era, but also on the Elastic Network. And what is the Elastic Network? It is a collection of organizations, institutions, banks, and projects that are launching their own chain. So you're able to take ZK Sync, and you're able to grab the components that you want from it, more privacy, more security, more robustness, and then launch your own chain that's interoperable. So we have kind of a fragmentation issue across Ethereum. Our approach to this solution is by offering these chains that people can customize, that can be private, public, all these different kinds of modes, but ultimately all seamlessly interact. So interop is currently in test. We will be having mainnet interop later this year. So everyone building right now is ahead of the future. And once we have the ability for these to have a seamless interaction, you'll be jumping across chains without knowing. Again, just kind of how we all interact in the world today. You're not focusing on which cloud provider, which app is on. You simply just log in and move on. So the technology. ZK Sync Era is the L2, the first Elastic network that we released. This is the original chain, more than 9 million addresses, 440 million transactions to date. Then now we launched ZK Stack earlier, or at the end of last year. This is a framework that lets people customize and create their own chains. And then now this all forms a part of what is the Elastic Network. So this is an ecosystem of chains that are independent yet interoperable. So every organization might have different needs, different countries might have different regulations. One chain does not fit all. For instance, let's use the use case of Cork ID in Buenos Aires. That use case is not GDPR compliant because there's no request for deletion on a standard blockchain. However, in what we'll talk about a Validium mode, you have the ability to have off-chain data being proven on-chain, so that'll allow you to do a request for deletion, which would make that GDPR compliant. So if we stick with one chain forever for every use case, we have limitations. If we allow folks to customize to their needs, we have the ability to really create mass market appeal. So the ZK Stack has a lot of these different kind of customizations. This is a clean dashboard, but it's basically the way that you would select how do you want to host this. I think some really important things are the chain mode, Validium or rollup. The Validium allows this off-chain private data. So banks are pretty much always going to choose a Validium mode. They'll have their own ledger. Then it becomes interoperable with all other chains and back to Ethereum. Data availability, this is a really interesting feature. If you are a builder, you can choose your own DA platform. You need to use our native. You could use EigenLayer, Celestia, Veil, or any other provider. This makes a massive amount of flexibility and choice when it comes to builders and institutions deploying. And then you can create your own custom gas token or use Ether. So there's a lot of ways that you can say, I like these components of ZK, I don't like these, and deploy your own for your own use case. And then this is a current view on what is the Elastic Network today. So we've got Kronos, which was one of the first Elastic chains to launch. That is from Crypto.com. They have over 100 million users on Crypto.com. This is now their L2. It will interoperate with everything else in the ecosystem. A big note here is if you build on Era or you build on one of these other chains, it's all interoperable. So as a dev, you can choose to deploy on any of these chains and have access to the users and liquidity of all of the others. Another interesting one, Exola, massive gaming platform from Web2 that has now launched their own chain as well. So 100 million Web2 users now getting experience to on-chain benefits. Ripio, as we all know, biggest exchange here, 10 million users coming on-chain. ZK Sync Era, over $1 billion in TVL. Abstract, which is also Pudgy Penguins. They're a chain that's launching, fully focused on consumer. You get to Abstract, you put in a Google, and it creates a wallet all behind the scenes. You have a lot of really high-powered features like streaming with tipping in crypto. But again, it's super consumer focused. So most people that go in need no information, no knowledge of how Web3 works. You just access like any other app. And they're also the team behind Pudgy Penguins, which has sold over 1 million physical Pudgies that people then mint NFTs of. So Walmart, Target, all these big stores across the US sell these physical plushies, and then now those kids or adults are now able to scan an NFT and interact in a virtual world. Little do they know that there's NFTs in the background, that there's Web3. It's just an experience that happens to be powered by blockchain. And this is a shift that's really important for us to gain mass adoption. A lot of other really interesting things. Union Chain is actually a conglomeration of top 4 exchanges in Asia. Quark ID, we just talked about. Treasure is another massive gaming platform. And then we have all of these kind of chains that provide primitives for infra. So Lens, Space and Time, which is proof of SQL, big for data and AI, many other really interesting use cases. So the Elastic Network kind of, this is I don't know if it's a pretty or a messy way of showing it, but what it tells you is there's a ton of user layer at the top, and all of this complexity is interconnected, but it all funnels into ZK Sync that puts the proofs on Ethereum. So the main case is all of this goes back to Ethereum. This isn't some Alt L1, this isn't some other L0, this isn't an L3. If those things mean something to you, if they don't, that's the point. It doesn't matter. It all comes back to Ethereum. That's all you need to understand is that the security and robustness of Ethereum is there. We just offer a cheaper, faster way to interact with it that is high security. And the big thing is ZK enables chains that can't be evil. The old trope, don't be evil, can't be evil. Well, we believe that code is law, and we don't believe in changing the rules after the game has been played. And so this is a big driving force for all of the decisions that we make as an organization, as a member of the Ethereum community. And this is really aligned with the ethos of Vitalik and ETH in general. So a lot of things that we've just been updating. There's some really big programs coming soon, especially around community programs. So if you're active in governance, you might already be aware, but if not, there's a 5 million ZK token program. One of the first cases of this, though, is we're going to be launching Elastic teams. So these are regionally focused teams that can help extend. So if you're based in a region, you really love the work that we're doing, or you have a lot of projects that you want to help get on chain, we'd love to talk to you and see how we can spin up. But our first team, which is live already, is ZK Amigos. Bravo. We have an amazing team here. Dolo, running content social. We have Pablo, I know he's somewhere, team lead, and then Juan P. Devrel. There's a hackathon this weekend here. There's $10,000 on the line. The ZK Amigos are going to be helping make sure you got all the info you need. But ultimately, give them a follow. They're always posting really interesting content, events, etc. We just had the ZK Kermes, which was quite literally on fire. For those of you that were there, we had to evacuate and still came back. It was an amazing event. The fire was not caused by the ZK Amigos, so I just want that to be clear. But really incredible effort and the ability to help expand in a more decentralized way. There's only so much that we as individuals can do. We need to work with the community. So again, if you are interested in helping us out or just getting to know the team, reach out to me, Dolo, or the like. And that's it. My name is Matias. Thank you.